I've always been fascinated about him. He's probably very much misunderstood, I think. But when I think about specific heroes, it would be my grandfather, who I'm named for, who did a whole lot of work in terms of interfaith. When he was a rabbi in the Deep South, in Columbia, South Carolina, in the 50s and the 60s, and he did a whole lot in terms of interfaith and contributing to non-Jews understanding what the Jewish faith was all about. And it was really his life work was interfaith. And his mentor was Rabbi Stephen Wise, who I always thought very highly of in terms of a man who cared about what he believed in, more than anything else. Famous story about how he sacrificed the building of his temple because he spoke truth to power, where he went to visit, I think in 1918 or something, he went to visit the steelworkers who were on strike, and he later spoke about it in the synagogue, gave a sermon in support of them, even though he knew that most of his major donors were big business owners and were opposed to the steelworkers strike. And on the way to Shul, he said to his wife, my temple is going to go up in smoke today. Sure enough, he did actually not live to see the building of his temple, because it was more important to him to fight for what he believed in than a building. So,
have you had any interesting encounters with the Orthodox over the 18 months since we spoke last?
Not really. It was shortly before that where I had 51 Orthodox rabbis sign a letter condemning the local Jewish paper for covering the fact that I exist.
Yeah.
I haven't really had much of an encounter with them. I did meet like a former teacher who used to work for me, and it was very just cordial and brief, just hey, how you doing, kind of thing. But no, not really anything beyond that.
Have you gone on a spiritual journey over the past 18 months?
Not really. Just kind of continued where I was. I think one significant life-altering spiritual journey is probably enough for a lifetime.
Okay, here I'm gonna be your congregant for a minute. I've been dating a girl on and off for the past year who was raised Orthodox and hates Orthodox Judaism with a passion. Mm-hmm. Like the prospect of stepping inside an Orthodox shul gives her a panic attack.
Wow.
She's also left-wing in her politics. I'm Orthodox in my religion and right-wing in my politics. Mm-hmm. Our time together is very sweet. Very, very good. But we each have contempt for the other person's beliefs in politics and religion. Right. Is there any hope for such a couple?
Well, think about James Carville and Mary Mather.
Yeah, right.
You probably have thought of them already, right?
Yeah.
That's the model. I always marvel at them. I think interfaith is easy.
Yeah.
It's that kind of relationship you're talking about that can be challenging. But I think that it is possible. They showed that it is possible, and there are other people like them, maybe less famous out there, that show that it definitely is possible.
How do you think it would work? Like, we don't argue. We don't have arguments. We both understand that the other person believes completely opposite.
Right.
And it seems to our relationship seems to work. But how would you envision a relationship working between two people with opposite views on religion and politics?
Well, I think you've just described how. My understanding from reading a little bit, because I was always fascinated by the Madeline Carville story, is that they really don't talk about politics much at home. You know, even though they're both like political animals and it's like what they do for a living, it's kind of like, you know, like doctors don't come home and discuss their patients. They're not allowed to by law. You know, I mean, they've got other stuff to discuss with their wives. So, you know, I mean, it's something that if you have enough going on between you, you know, doesn't have to be something that comes up all the time. Now, I mean, admittedly, that's the issue of politics. When you're talking about religion, that does necessitate, obviously, some lifestyle choices, you know? Like my brother, you know, he's just been ordained as a Reform rabbi. His wife is Orthodox, and they obviously, you know, when they got married, had to make some decisions about how they're going to live their life. And it's obviously always the non-Orthodox partner who's going to have to compromise a little bit more, just because, you know, the Orthodox side, at least from the Orthodox perspective, there are things that cannot be compromised on. So, but you know, people make it work. You know, there's another example I can think of, and I can't remember her name right now, but one of the prominent, like, left-wing Merit members of Knesset is you know, totally secular and married to an Orthodox man. So it's doable.
Shimon Peres, I believe, is married to an Orthodox woman.
Could be. Yeah, I'm not sure. Could very well be.
Do you have any thoughts, like in jokes, priest, minister, rabbi jokes? The rabbi is never portrayed as an idiot. Like, he's always portrayed as the smart one, the wise one. And whenever I step foot into a rabbi's office and I've got a problem, and he's sitting there and he's surrounded, you know, by Sforim, holy books, you know, from the floor to the ceiling, there does seem to be like this great wisdom and this ability to give advice that comes with the mantle of rabbi. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Interesting. I mean, the first part that you mentioned, I'd have to really go back to, you know, my anthology of jokes to figure that one out. But I'll look into that. You know, the second part, you know, I'm not sure. I mean, there have been, I think, enough examples of rabbis that give good advice and rabbis that give bad advice. I don't know that studying a specific discipline will always enable you to give good advice. I was always a little bit reticent from that, you know, that approach. But I don't know. It's a good question. I'm not sure.
But surely, when you're a believer, you felt a power, particularly like if you were sitting in your studies filled with Sforim, and someone came to you with a problem or a question. Didn't there like seem to be a power with the Sforim all around you, and you know, you believe that they went back to God, and like that you were like executing God's will on earth? I mean, surely that was a somewhat invigorating, even intoxicating way to live.
You're saying when I was an Orthodox rabbi?
Yeah, when you're a believing Orthodox rabbi. Yeah.
I even then I had a slightly more liberal approach. I don't think I ever really believed that Ruach HaKodesh was speaking through me. You know, I mean, rabbi, not prophet. You know, obviously there is probably, I don't know if intoxicating is the right word, but probably there's a, you know, there's something to be said for the conviction that, hey, this is the Word of God and it's been handed down from generation to generation. You know, perhaps there's something to that, but obviously, again, that's not where my thinking is anymore. So,
what have you noticed about people's reaction once they hear or understand you're a rabbi?
Their reaction once they hear or understand that I'm a rabbi, in terms of what?
Well, are they more careful not to swear? Do they suddenly regard